Now, as you may know and may have also participated in, the other day I put up a poll asking how you'd rate Season 2 of The Mandalorian overall, and as you can see, after 90-some thousand votes, the results have been overwhelmingly positive, to say the least. With 97% of people saying it was at the very least good, and 77% of people saying it was amazing. And yeah, I know some of you may be wondering why it adds up to 101%, but that's simply a result of the way the numbers get rounded off. Anyway, here, though I always make a video for these polls, and in them I dig into the comments and read what you all have to say about the topic at hand, and I will be doing that for this poll as well in a video in the next few days. But this time I wanted to make a separate video first, one where I go into my own thoughts, and this will also be one of my Sunday commentary style videos where I may go a bit off topic at times, because I think these results have quite a bit to say, and because I don't want to spend the whole video where I read your comments just giving my thoughts. So that said, this is usually the part of the video where I say something like how these results might be somewhat skewed because of some level of bias on the part of those participating, how those who watch my videos obviously tend to share my thoughts and or views on things which will affect the results. And usually I say this because I've been very critical of the sequel trilogy, and when I do polls in regards to those films, the results tend to be not very kind to them. And that if another channel did the same poll, one that really praises and loves the sequels, of course the results would be different, they'd be better, and that somewhere in the middle of the two polls, and we can debate about just exactly where that would likely be the best representation for the whole fan base. And though, yes, I could say something similar this time about bias in regards to the show, though in reverse, because I've done almost nothing but praise The Mandalorian, and ironically the few times in a review I've been critical or a little too nitpicky, I tend to get plenty of pushback, which is fine, I'm not complaining. If you give criticism, you should be willing to take it yourself, and accept that there will be those who disagree with you, that not everyone will, or even should, see things your way. Anyway, though I could, and probably still should, say something similar about biased results here, I really don't know that there is a sizable portion of the fanbase out there who doesn't like this series, and who didn't really enjoy the second season in particular. And sure, there are some out there who didn't like it or even hate it, which is certainly fine. And I also know there are those who refuse to watch it because they gave up on Disney Star Wars after or at some point during the sequels, or just won't watch it out of principle at this point because they feel Star Wars has been ruined forever and they don't want to support Disney or Lucasfilm anymore. And if that's your stance, I do get it. But I'd still encourage you to at least give The Mandalorian a try, because it truly is some of the best Star Wars, well, ever, and perhaps represents a shift in the way the franchise is being run. We'll have to wait and see on that. And don't just take my word for it about how good it is. Take the word of a lot of other fans as well, again looking at the results of this poll. And also keep in mind that I, the one who posted it, has been labeled by some a Star Wars hater who apparently never has anything positive to say about it and who has a quote-unquote toxic audience who hates all things Star Wars as well. Which actually just means, I think, we're the type of fans who won't love and accept anything and everything just because a Star Wars logo is slapped on it. Go figure, but we want quality for our money, and the content they provide and that we pay for actually has to be well thought out, good, and even meaningful. It has to be worthy of the Star Wars logo. This doesn't work the other way around. Putting the logo on it isn't what makes it worthy. The quality makes it worthy of the logo. And it's too bad that Disney and some at Lucasfilm didn't realize that before the sequels or even during them. They didn't figure out, or maybe they ignored, that it was always the quality of the films and stories themselves, as well as how good the characters were or weren't, and how well they were being handled. That some fans had issues with that it was never about the things some of them, and especially some in the media, claimed it was. It had nothing to do with the genders and or races of some of the characters. It wasn't strong female characters and or people of color that fans were against. It was always just, from their point of view, bad Star Wars that they were against and didn't like. I mean, just look at The Mandalorian, and yet again at the results of this poll, still keeping in mind that a lot of people who voted in this, those who watch my videos, really don't like the sequels at all. Yet they love The Mandalorian, a show that has strong female characters and people of color everywhere. And forgive me here, I'm not a big fan of the term people of color when we're all just people. I don't know why we're so eager these days to categorize everyone when, not so long ago, it felt like the idea was to celebrate how unique we all were as individuals, to be free thinkers, and to be proud to be you. I really don't know how you ever end racism and stereotyping by implying we can all and should be put into these groups based on our immutable traits. I mean, am I crazy, or does that not encourage those things? Aren't we encouraging generalizing and division? Isn't this all the opposite of diversity? Anyway, here, not to go too deep into that, short of maybe going to the dark, shadowy corners of the internet, you'd have a hard time finding anyone in any sort of numbers complaining about what race or gender the characters in The Mandalorian are. In fact, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone talking about it at all. The media certainly isn't bringing it up, because how could they simultaneously talk about how loved the show is by the fans, and then talk about how well it showcases diversity? That doesn't fit the previous narrative very well, does it? How do you talk about how celebrated the return of a character like Ahsoka Tano was, that nearly everyone is excited to hear she's getting her own show, and continue to make the claim that male Star Wars fans are intimidated by strong female characters, especially when they're given a lead role? It just doesn't quite compute, does it? It's almost like millions of happy fans cried out, and the claims of sexism in the fanbase were suddenly silenced. But maybe the funniest or most ironic part about all of this is that it's now some in the media who have issues with the female characters in Star Wars, or at least the actresses behind them. They're angry at Gina Carano, who plays Cara Dune, for expressing the wrong opinions on Twitter. And it's so funny how concerned they are about women having their voices heard and being seen, until they don't say the right things. Then they should shut up, I guess. Then there's also Rosario Dawson, who plays Ahsoka Tano, who, and I'm sorry I don't know all the details here, had issues or an altercation with a gardener that worked for her who was trans, and she's now in some sort of legal trouble over it, and many are calling her transphobic over this. And look, I don't want to condone bad behavior, and certainly not criminal behavior, and if she's guilty of wrongdoing, she should of course face consequences. But in general, I don't really care what actors do or what opinions politically they hold. Either way, I just care that they can play good characters. Which is not to say we should be lenient on them when they do something wrong. Fame and fortune should not protect you from the law or anything like that. But I don't really care what someone says on Twitter, what opinion they hold, short of letting their outside beliefs influence what they're trying to do within the story, which is why a lot of people took issue with Brie Larson when she said playing Captain Marvel was her form of activism. Anyway, as much as I've been loving and enjoying The Mandalorian, it's almost been equally nice to get a reprieve as a fan base from attacks by the media, and to see the fan base united by something. It's been great to see everybody just like something again. And it's been great to see the media fall silent and their narrative fall apart. Not that it ever really made sense anyway, not when you look back at the original trilogy and see that characters like Lando and Leia are some of the best and most beloved in the whole franchise. And growing up, I never thought of them as the strong female character and the black character. They were always just good characters. Furthermore, there's constantly people calling for the return of a character like Mace Windu, even though he probably died in Revenge of the Sith, and they want him to return because we just didn't get enough of him in the prequels or Clone Wars series even. Plus, they'd love to see Samuel L. Jackson in the role yet again because he's one well, you know the rest. And continuing to look back then, there's also been pretty much the opposite of what the media is saying these days. There's been characters attacked even though they're white males, characters like Anakin in the prequels, as well as Hayden Christensen, the actor behind him. Over the years, some fans have been pretty brutal towards him, yet it'd be laughable to claim it was because of his race or gender. Then you have critics, and again a lot of fans, who were also brutal towards Jar Jar Binks, and Ahmad Best, the actor behind him, has even said it was so bad he contemplated suicide. And he said the main problem was the media. So should we reanalyze their criticism of this character and say that all the hate from the media was because Jar Jar was played by a black man? I'm sure if you tried that, they'd tell you how preposterous such an idea is. And along these same lines, I've even seen plenty of critics and fans who had issues with Padme and mainly Natalie Portman's acting. They said she did a pretty terrible job in the prequels. And that just can't be the case, right? We need to re-examine that, considering she's won an Academy Award since, so it couldn't be her acting. It has to be something else. It has to be the media's hate for female characters, right? But seriously here, when you look at the whole big picture of Star Wars, it's almost like race and gender have never mattered to fans either way, and once upon a time they didn't seem to matter too much to critics either. That if a character was good, it didn't matter if they were male or female or what color their skin was. The same way that if a character was bad, or if maybe the actor didn't do the best of jobs, or maybe wasn't directed very well, no one would shy away from very vocally criticizing them. and no implications were ever made about them being full of hate for calling it out. And yet, when it comes to the sequels and characters like Rey, Rose, and Holdo, it had to be because they were female characters, and strong ones at that fans were criticizing them. And we know they're strong because we were told and very overtly shown that they were. Which I'm sure had nothing to do with maybe why some fans didn't like them. After all, everyone loves flawless characters. It's so easy to see yourself in them, if you're narcissistic maybe. And look, I'm not saying here that no fans went too far in their criticism of those characters, and sometimes even the actors who played them. Certainly plenty did. But sadly, in this world today, the more calm and rational you are, the more people tend to dismiss or overlook what you have to say. While the more bold or crazy what you say is, the more people will take notice and pay attention. Which means the more likes and shares they'll get, the more they'll have their beliefs affirmed, and or the more clicks they'll get or views they'll get, and the more money they make. Which is certainly something the media and others have long since figured out. The more sensational something is made out to be, the more attention it will get. If you write an article and title it, "There may be a few bad apples in the Star Wars fandom, but overall it's a good crowd," no one is going to pay attention to that, because of course that's the case. There's always going to be a few amongst the many that don't behave, if you will. But what you can't do or shouldn't do is extrapolate the few onto the many. You can't take a small number of really bad examples of behavior and say they represent the whole. That is basically stereotyping. That is the root of things like bigotry and racism, which I thought we were against or were fighting against. But I guess it's okay to do that when you're attacking fans of a fictional property. No harm there, destroying the reputations of those people who they think are mainly white males, even though there are plenty of women and people of color in the Star Wars fanbase. But who cares about the innocents that get hurt because you're getting clicks on your article? And then when things do turn around, when the fanbase unites behind something, just make some fun, frivolous articles about the 10 cutest things Baby Yoda has done. Or maybe complain that the fanbase likes Luke Skywalker again, the horror. And forget all about the other stuff you were writing about not so long ago. So in closing here, no, The Mandalorian didn't cure the toxic Star Wars fanbase. It just exposed the narrative for the lie it always was. That all that really matters to the vast majority of fans is whether or not Star Wars is good, not the race and gender of the characters, and that's it. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about all this. What do you think about the claims of toxicity in the fanbase? Were they justified, or have they always just been nonsense? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.